The morning sky was the color of ash. Smoke curled above the broken city like a dying prayer, hanging heavy over streets where silence had replaced laughter. Captain R.O.I.'s con stood at the checkpoint, his uniform coated in the same dust that clung to every brick, every fallen dream. The radio crackled behind him. Another distant explosion, another location lost. But here, in this small corner of what used to be home, the world was still breathing. He lifted the barrier for an old man dragging a cart filled with water jugs. The man's hands trembled from exhaustion. R.O.I. stepped forward, took one side of the cart, and helped him across. No words were exchanged, just a small nod, gratitude passing like a whisper. R.O.I. adjusted his rifle, the metal cold against his chest. His face was expressionless, but his eyes carried stories no one dared ask about. To his soldiers, he was the quiet one, steady under fire, calm when others broke. Yet beneath that silence, guilt moved like a shadow that refused to leave. He checked his watch. 6:47 hours. The day was barely beginning, but the air already carried the scent of something inevitable. "Captain," called Lieutenant Farid, a young soldier barely 22, running toward him with a folded map. "Command wants us at the East District. They've located a group of civilians trapped under the old school." Our eyes took the paper, scanning it quickly. The East District was hell. Crumbling buildings, sniper zones, streets crawling with hidden traps. He folded the map without a word and tucked it into his vest. Farid hesitated. "Sir, that area is marked red." Our eyes' tone was calm, almost detached. "People are still alive there. That's reason enough." The team assembled within minutes. 6 men, all carrying fatigue heavier than their rifles. They climbed into the armored jeep, the engine rumbling like an unspoken warning. R.O.I. sat in the front, scanning the road through the bullet-scarred windshield. The streets blurred past, walls painted with the ghosts of slogans, wires dangling like veins from shattered poles. A child's bicycle lay abandoned beside a crater. A torn school bag fluttered from a fence. Every corner of the city was a memory of what once mattered. Farid glanced sideways. "You ever think this will end, sir?" Our eyes didn't look at him. "Everything ends. The question is, who's left to see it?" The boy nodded but said nothing. In the silence, our eyes' mind wandered back 15 years, to a girl with laughing eyes running through a wheat field. His younger sister, Amal. She had been 12 when the first bomb fell. He remembered her hand slipping from his as the sky turned red. Since that day, he had sworn his life to one promise: no child dies on my watch. The jeep halted near the remains of the old school. Its roof was gone, walls cracked like old bones. The air was thick with the stench of smoke and silence. R.O.I. stepped out, his boots crunching over glass and dust. He gave hand signals, splitting his team into pairs. "Farid, with me. The rest, cover the perimeter. Stay sharp." They entered through a broken window, flashlights slicing through the gloom. Chalkboards lay split across the floor, desks overturned, children's drawings scattered like forgotten prayers. A faint sound caught R.O.I.'s ear, a cough, soft and weak. He raised his hand, motioning for silence. They followed the sound of the debris until they reached a small crawl space under a collapsed beam. "Hello." R.O.I.'s voice was calm but firm. "Is anyone here?" A tiny whimper answered. R.O.I. knelt, pushing aside chunks of plaster. A pair of frightened eyes stared back. A little girl, no older than 6, clutching a wooden doll with a broken arm. Her face was streaked with soot, her hair matted, but her gaze was alive, alert. "It's okay," R.O.I. said softly. "We're soldiers. We're here to take you somewhere safe." The girl hesitated, gripping the doll tighter. "You're not bad men." He shook his head gently. "Not today." He reached in, offering his hand. She crawled out slowly, trembling. R.O.I. wrapped his jacket around her thin shoulders. "What's your name?" "Noor," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That means light." Her lower lip quivered. "Mama said the light always comes back, even after dark." R.O.I. felt something tighten in his chest. "Your mother's a wise woman. We'll find her. Noor, I promise." Farid looked around nervously. "Sir, we should move. This place isn't stable." R.O.I. nodded. "Right. Let's get her out. He lifted Nor into his arms. She was feather-light, too quiet for a child. As they stepped into the corridor, the distant echo of artillery rolled across the horizon. The building trembled slightly. Outside, the rest of the squad had gathered survivors. 2 women, an injured man, and a boy holding his baby sister. The fear on their faces was something Aro Eyes had seen 1,000 times, yet it never stopped piercing through his armor of discipline. "Convoy's ready," said Sergeant Imran, "but we got reports of sniper fire 2 blocks west." Aro Eyes' mind calculated routes quickly. "We take the alley behind the bakery. Less open ground." They moved fast, keeping close to the walls. Nor peeked over his shoulder, eyes wide at the desolate streets. "Uncle," she said softly, "are you a real soldier?" Our Eyes glanced back at her. "Why do you ask?" "Because you don't shout like the others." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Real soldiers don't always need to shout." She tilted her head. "Then what do? They keep their promises." The team reached the alley. Rubble blocked part of the path, forcing them to climb. Our Eyes set Nor down, helping her over. His every movement was measured, protective. She slipped once. He caught her hand before she could fall. Her doll dropped onto the ground. Nor gasped. "My doll." Our Eyes looked ahead. Open street. Clear line of sight from rooftops. A sniper's dream. Still, he turned back, crouched, and retrieved the doll. "Got it," he said, handing it to her. She hugged it tightly. "Thank you." They moved on. Our Eyes' senses stayed alert. The rhythm of footsteps, the pattern of echoes, the strange silence that always came before danger. He felt the shift in air pressure, instinct honed by years of survival. "Down!" he shouted. A bullet cracked the air, slamming into the wall inches from his head. Dust exploded. The civilian screamed. Our Eyes dropped behind a pile of debris, scanning the rooftops through a scope. "Sniper, northeast building." Farid yelled. "Return fire, 2:00 window." Our Eyes ordered. Gunfire erupted. The civilians ducked. Nor clung to his arm, trembling. Our Eyes' heartbeat slowed. Battle calm, cold and sharp. He guided his men's aim, precise and composed. After a tense minute, the shooting stopped. The enemy retreated. The street fell silent again, smoke curling where bullets had struck. Our Eyes checked Nor, unharmed but shaking. He knelt to her level. "You're safe now. Just keep holding the doll, okay?" She nodded. "You're not scared?" He looked into her eyes. "Of course I am. But fear means we still care about something." For a moment, her small hand gripped his glove. In that touch, amid ruin and dust, Our Eyes felt something stir, a fragile thread of life pulling him back from the numbness he had carried for years. He looked up at the horizon. The sun had broken through the smoke, faint but stubborn. Maybe light did come back after dark. Maybe this was what he was meant to protect. Not borders or buildings, but the small flickers of innocence that refused to die. He rose, rifle slung over his shoulder, Nor in his arms again. The convoy crept through the narrow alley like a wounded animal. Slow, cautious, ears tuned to every sound. The city ahead looked hollow, stripped of everything but echoes. The buildings loomed like broken teeth against a sky bruised with smoke. Captain Our Eyes scanned the rooftops through his scope. Nothing moved, but he knew better than to trust silence. It was the kind that listened, the kind that waited. "Keep your spacing," he murmured to his men. "Stay low and move with cover." Farid nodded, leading the civilians forward. Nor clutched her wooden doll close to her chest, her small fingers white with tension. Every few steps, she glanced up at Our Eyes as if searching for reassurance he didn't have the heart to fake. He gave her a faint smile anyway. They crossed a stretch of open street where the road had caved in from shell fire. Our Eyes signaled for everyone to stop. A sound, metal scraping, drifted from a nearby balcony. He aimed instantly, heart tightening. A loose shutter swung in the wind. False alarm. Still, the tension didn't ease. Nor tugged on his sleeve. "Uncle, are we almost safe?" He kept his eyes on the street. "Almost, princess. Just a few more turns." "Where will we go?" "The camp near the river. You like it there?" They have food, beds, even stories at night. Her brow furrowed. And Mama, will she be there? He didn't answer right away. If she's looking for you, that's where she'll come. That seemed enough for her. She nodded solemnly, trusting him without question. That trust felt heavier than the rifle on his shoulder. Our eyes checked his watch. 8-12 hours. They were running out of daylight, and luck. He motioned toward a half-collapsed bakery. We'll rest 5 minutes inside. Keep it quiet. Inside, the smell of burnt flour still lingered. Bags of wheat lay torn open, white powder scattered across the floor like snow. Nora's eyes widened when she saw the cracked display case filled with dust-covered pastries. "Can I have one?" she whispered. Our eyes crouched beside her, brushing the dirt off a stale bun. "Only if you promise to pretend it's the best one you've ever had." She giggled softly. "It already is." Fard smiled from the doorway. "Sir, didn't think you had jokes left in you." Our eyes replied without looking up. "They're rationed, too." The brief laughter faded when a distant blast rolled through the streets. The walls trembled. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Our eyes stood instantly. "Move out. Now!" They slipped back into the open, forming a line along the wall. The sound of gunfire echoed in the distance, closer than before. The air thickened with urgency. Halfway through the next block, a sharp cry rose from behind. The injured man in their group stumbled. His leg wound had reopened. Our eyes knelt quickly, tied a tighter bandage, and lifted the man's arm over his shoulder. Fard whispered, "Sir, you can't carry him and cover at the same time." "Then you cover." Our eyes said simply, "No one gets left behind." Nor walked beside him, small hand gripping his sleeve. Despite the danger, she didn't complain, didn't cry. There was a steadiness in her, the kind that only those who've already lost too much can carry. A sudden hiss cut the air, a bullet snapping past. Our eyes spun around, shouting, "Down!" The civilians dropped instantly. Another shot followed, shattering a window inches above them. "Sniper, high angle!" Fard yelled, scanning the rooftops. Our eyes pushed Nora behind a concrete barrier. "Stay here and don't move, understand?" She nodded, eyes wide. Dahl pressed her chest. The soldiers returned fire, but the sniper was skilled, firing and vanishing between rooftops. Our eyes studied the angle of the shots. They weren't aiming to kill the soldiers. They were targeting the civilians. Fard lay suppressing fire. "I'm moving to higher ground." Fard's eyes widened. "Sir, that's suicide." Our eyes didn't respond. He darted across the alley, hugging the walls, scaling a pile of debris that led to a collapsed staircase. He moved with practiced precision, mind focused only on a rhythm of breath and movement. Halfway up, he paused, listened. Another shot cracked, hitting the barrier below where Nora hid. The sound of her muffled sob tore through him. He pushed harder, climbing the last few meters until he reached the rooftop. Dust swirled in the wind. Across the street, through the scope of his rifle, he caught a glimpse of the shooter, a figure in a dark jacket, half hidden behind a rusted chimney. Our eyes steadied his aim. The sniper shifted. Too slow. Our eyes squeezed the trigger. One clean shot. The echo faded into the city's hollow silence. He lowered his rifle, exhaling slowly. Below, Fard called, "Clear." Our eyes descended, landing beside Nora. She looked up at him, eyes shining with relief. "You came back." "I said I would, didn't I?" She nodded, holding out her doll. She was scared, too. He smiled faintly. "Then she's brave now." They moved again, weaving through a maze of collapsed buildings until they reached an open square. The air was eerily still, the kind of stillness that felt wrong. Our eyes halted, scanning the corners. His gut tightened. Something wasn't right. Then came the whistle, sharp, mechanical, unmistakable. "Mortar! Down!" The explosion ripped through the far end of the square. Heat and dust swallowed everything. Our eyes hit the ground, shielding Nora with his body. The world turned into a roar of flame and smoke. When the blast faded, there was ringing in his ears, a metallic taste in his mouth. He blinked through the haze, Nora still breathing beneath him, her small hands gripping his sleeve. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head, dazed but alive. "You're bleeding," she whispered. He wiped the cut on his forehead. "Just a scratch. I've had worse haircuts." Her lips trembled, but she laughed weakly. That sound, fragile, real, grounded him back into the moment. Farid rushed over, coughing. Everyone accounted for. One soldier down, the rest stable. Our eyes nodded grimly. We keep moving. The longer we stay, the more they'll circle in. As they turned the next corner, Norse suddenly froze. "Wait!" She pointed toward a pile of rubble near a burnout car. A small hand protruded from beneath the debris. Our eyes' stomach sank. He hurried over, moving rocks and metal. It wasn't a body. It was another child, barely conscious, trapped under a collapsed wall. Farid called, "Sir, we don't have time." Our eyes cut him off. "We make time." He pried away the broken beam with his shoulder, grunting through the strain. The weight was brutal, but the beam finally shifted. Farid helped pull the boy free. Nur knelt beside him, whispering softly, "It's okay, you're safe now." The boy clung to her hand, eyes wide and terrified. Our eyes wrapped him in a blanket from his pack. "We take him too." As they moved again, the morning light began to fade behind drifting smoke. The road ahead twisted toward the river, their destination still miles away. Nur walked silently beside Our Eyes, her doll tucked under her arm. After a while, she looked up. "Uncle, why do you help everyone?" He thought for a moment. "Because someone once helped me when I couldn't help myself." She smiled softly. "Then I'll help people too when I grow up." Our Eyes looked down at her. So small, yet speaking like someone who had seen too much of the world. "That's a promise you should keep." She held out her pinky. "Then promise you'll be there to see it." He hesitated, then linked his pinky with hers. "Deal." For a fleeting moment, the war around them felt far away. There was only the sound of their footsteps, the faint hum of hope. The wind picked up as the convoy reached the river's edge, carrying the sharp tang of smoke and metal. The once blue water now shimmered with oil and ashes, rippling under a sky the color of old steel. Captain Our Eyes Khan raised a hand, signaling the group to halt. The camp was only 2 kilometers away, but the last stretch was open ground, exposed and quiet. Too quiet. He crouched behind a rusted truck, eyes sweeping the skyline. "Farid, check the rooftops east and north. Imran, cover the rear." His tone was steady, but his instincts hummed with unease. Farid raised his binoculars. "Nothing visible, sir. Maybe they've pulled back. Or maybe they're watching." Our Eyes muttered. Nur stood beside him, her doll tucked beneath her arm. Her small face was smudged with dust, but her eyes held a stubborn calm. "Uncle," she whispered, "why did the noise stop?" He looked at her briefly. "Because danger likes silence." She frowned, clutching his sleeve tighter. "Then I don't like silence." "Neither do I," he said quietly. The soldiers began moving again, guiding the civilians to the narrow ruins bordering the open stretch. Every step echoed. The buildings seemed to lean inward, as if holding their breath. Our Eyes' boots crunched over broken glass. His mind stayed sharp, measuring distances, calculating angles. Years of combat had taught him that death never arrived with warning. It slipped in through hesitation. They reached a burnt-out courtyard filled with rubble. In the center stood a half-toppled statue of a soldier from a forgotten era. Nur stared at it curiously. Who was he? Someone who believed the world could still be saved. Our Eyes replied. She thought for a moment. Did he save it? His gaze lingered on the bullet holes running through the stone chest. He tried. Farid jogged up, breath quick. "Sir, drone feeds down again. We're blind from here to the camp." Our Eyes' jaw tightened. "We move in pairs. Civilians in the middle. If anything happens, you don't stop." He led the way across the courtyard, scanning each rooftop. The wind hissed softly through twisted rebar. A torn flag flapped against the wall, its edges burned. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. Then it happened, so fast it barely made sense. A sharp crack split the air. Dust exploded inches from Our Eyes' shoulder. A sniper. "Cover!" he barked, dragging Nor behind the base of the statue. Bullets tore through the stone, sending shards flying. The civilians screamed and scattered to the ground. Farid's team returned fire. Try to pinpoint the shooter's location. Top floor, west building. Farid shouted, firing in bursts. Our eyes peeked out, too risky. The shooter was professional, patient, shifting between vantage points. Each shot came closer, deliberate. This wasn't random fire. The target wasn't the soldiers. Another round whistled past, slamming into the wall behind Nor. Our eyes felt the realization hit him like a blow. The sniper wasn't aiming at him. He was aiming at her. He turned sharply, shouting, "Stay down. Don't move." But Nor, startled by the noise, had dropped her doll. It rolled out across the open concrete, stopping in a patch of sunlight. She froze, staring at it, then crawled forward. Our eyes' heart lurched. "Nor, stop." She didn't. Her small hand reached toward the doll just as a glint of light flashed from a rooftop. Time slowed. Our eyes didn't think. He moved. He lunged forward, tackling her to the ground. The gunshot cracked. A fiery sting ripped through his chest. The world spun, colors bleeding together. The doll tumbled from Nor's grasp and landed beside him, its painted eyes staring blankly at the sky. He gasped, the air sharp and heavy. Blood soaked through his uniform, hot and fast. He barely felt it, only the weight of the girl trembling beneath him. "Uncle," Nor's voice shook. "You're hurt." He forced a breath, trying to steady his voice. "Just a scratch, Princess." Farid's voice echoed distantly. "Sniper down. We got him." The world grew quieter, like someone had turned down the sound. Our eyes blinked, struggling to stay upright. Nor's small hands pressed against his jacket, trying to stop the bleeding. Tears streaked her dirt-covered cheeks. "Don't sleep," she whispered, shaking him. "Please don't." He looked at her through the haze, managing a faint smile. "You're safe now. That's what matters." "No, you promised we'd go together." He wanted to answer, but his voice wouldn't come. His ears filled with the rhythm of his own heartbeat, slow, uneven. The sunlight flickered in his vision, and for a moment he saw Amal, his sister, standing in that same glow. She was smiling, holding a bunch of wildflowers. "You did good, Bai." Her voice seemed to whisper, "You kept your promise this time." Farid dropped to his knees beside him, shouting for the medic. "We need pressure here. He's losing blood fast." Our eyes' world narrowed to fragments. The rustle of fabric, the sound of Nor crying, the rough pressure hands on his wound. He tried to focus on the sky. It was no longer gray. It had turned pale blue, almost peaceful. He coughed, forcing the words through fading breath. "Nor, listen." She leaned closer, crying silently. "Be brave. That's an order." Her voice trembled. "You said soldiers never lie." He blinked slowly, the corner of his mouth curving faintly. "And I didn't." Then, through the ringing in his ears, he heard footsteps, rapid, desperate, breaking through the chaos. A woman's voice cut through the noise, panicked but commanding. "Move. Let me through." Farid turned, surprised. "Who?" A figure pushed past the soldiers. A woman in a dusty doctor's vest, stethoscope swinging from her neck. Her face was streaked with ash and sweat, eyes wide with shock. She dropped beside our eyes, her hands already checking his pulse. "Pressure dressing now," she barked at Farid. "I need saline and a bandage kit." Our eyes squinted through the blur. The voice was familiar, soft, fierce, unforgettable. "Sarah," he whispered. Her hands froze. She looked down at him, disbelief flooding her face. Our eyes. He smiled faintly through the pain. "You always show up late." Her breath hitched, but she didn't stop working. "You always show up bleeding." Nur looked between them, confusion mixing with hope. "You know Uncle?" Sarah's eyes glistened. "Yes, sweetheart. A long time ago." She pressed harder on our eyes' wound, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Stay with me, Captain." "Not again. Not this time." Our eyes tried to focus on her face, the same one he'd carried in memory through years of war. Didn't think I'd see you here. Life's cruel like that, she whispered. The world pulsed around them. Shouts, gunfire in the distance, the frantic rhythm of heartbeats. ROI's vision dimmed at the edges, but he caught one last glimpse. Sarah's hand steady, Nora's face hovering above his, the doll lying between them. He exhaled weakly, voice breaking into a whisper. Tell her she's safe. Sarah nodded quickly. She will be. Just hold on. But his eyelids grew heavier. The noise faded again, replaced by the low hum of memory. His sister's laughter, the warmth of home, the promise he made long ago. 3 minutes. That's how long it took for life to blur between past and present. For one man's silence to speak louder than every sound of war. The sky had dimmed to copper. Smoke curled lazily upward, blurring the sun into a pale circle. The courtyard was still, the battle sounds fading like an echo swallowed by time. Only the hurried murmurs of medics broke the silence as they worked around Captain ROI's, Khan's motionless body. Sarah knelt beside him, hands slick with blood. Her mind was a storm, half instinct, half prayer. Every second stretched into infinity. Pulse, she demanded. Ready, ma'am. Weak but there, a medic answered. Keep pressure on the wound, she said, tearing open another bandage with her teeth. Her eyes stayed on RI's face, the same eyes she'd memorized years ago before he vanished into war and duty. He looked older now, hardened, but the faint crease between his brows hadn't changed. He still carried the weight of the world there. Come on, she muttered under her breath. Don't you dare give up now. Nora stood a few feet away, clutching her doll, eyes wide and wet. Is he dying? She asked softly. Sarah's hands froze. The question sliced deeper than the wound she was trying to close. She forced her voice to stay calm. Not if I can help it. The girl stepped closer. He said he doesn't lie. Sarah's throat tightened. Then we'll make sure he keeps that promise. The medics lifted RI's onto a stretcher. Sarah climbed in beside him as they rushed toward the field clinic through the broken streets. Every bump sent fresh blood, seeping through the dressings. The smell of iron filled the air. Her stethoscope trembled against his chest. Faint rhythm slipping away. She leaned close to his ear. Do you hear me, Captain? You don't get to leave like this. Not again. His lips moved, barely audible. Still giving orders? Relief cut through her fear. Always, she whispered back. He tried to smile, but the effort dragged him under again. His eyes fluttered closed. Pressure dropping, a medic shouted. Push fluids. Sarah snapped, her training taking over. He's going into shock. They burst into the clinic. An abandoned school now turned into chaos. Lanterns swung from the ceiling, illuminating rows of wounded men and women. The air was thick with antiseptic, sweat, and quiet suffering. Sarah grabbed a syringe, inserting it without hesitation. Get me oxygen. Now! Nora tried to follow but was stopped at the doorway. She clutched her doll tighter, peeking through the crack, watching the only man who protected her, as if he were a hero from her storybooks. Inside, time fractured. Sarah worked fast, every movement precise. Her world narrowed to the rise and fall of his chest. Nothing else existed. She pressed her palms against him, whispering under her breath, half medicine, half memory. You still owe me a goodbye. RI's, Khan. You don't get to break that one, too. The heart monitor beeped weakly, then stuttered. Come on, she whispered fiercely. Come back. Her voice cracked. You promised Amal you'd protect Noor. You promised me you'd live long enough to stop running. The monitor gave one long, flat tone. For a second, the room froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Sarah's vision blurred, but she didn't stop. She slammed her hands on his chest, starting compressions. No, not like this. The medic hesitated. Doctor, keep the line open, she barked. Charged the defibrillator. Sweat dripped into her eyes. She didn't wipe it away. She pressed harder, her movements rhythmic, desperate. You always said silence was dangerous. Then don't you dare make this one. She felt the current surge beneath her fingers as the defibrillator charged. Clear. The jolt threw his body upward, then down again, The monitor flickered. Nothing. Again, she demanded. Ma'am. Do it. Another jolt. Still flat. She paused, panting, her hands trembling. Tears blurred her vision. Please, our eyes, not today. She pressed again. 1, 2, 3. Each beat carrying the weight of every unsaid word between them. Then, faintly, impossibly, the monitor blipped. Once. Then again. A weak but steady rhythm filled the room. Sarah let out a shaky breath, collapsing back against the wall. The medic exhaled too, wiping his brow. He's back, ma'am. Her shoulders sagged. Stabilize him. Keep the 4 running slow. If that rhythm drops again, you call me. Yes, doctor. She turned her head, eyes closing for a moment. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with gratitude. Noor slipped quietly into the room, tiptoeing to his bedside. Is he okay now? She whispered. Sarah looked at the child, her voice softening. He will be. He just needs a rest. Noor placed the doll beside his arm. She'll watch him for you. Sarah smiled faintly. That's perfect. As the girl sat quietly, humming to herself, Sarah sank into the chair beside the bed. The adrenaline faded, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She studied R.O.I.'s face. The man who once walked away without a word, now lying broken but alive because he refused to let a child die. The years between them dissolved. She remembered the night he left, his uniform crisp, his eyes full of guilt. You'll hate me for this, he had said. She hadn't replied, only turned away. Now, watching him breathe, she whispered, I never hated you. I just didn't know how to forgive you. His eyelids twitched, as if he heard her even through the fog. Outside, the wind carried the faint sounds of rebuilding. The gunfire had stopped. The soldiers were returning from the ruins. Life, fragile and persistent, was crawling back. Sarah rested her head against the wall, fatigue pulling at her, but she didn't close her eyes. Not yet. A faint groan broke the silence. R.O.I. stirred, his voice hoarse. You never listen to orders. She turned sharply, disbelief flashing across her face. You should be unconscious. He managed a ghost of a smile. I'd miss your lectures. She let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. You're impossible. Still here, though, he murmured. She leaned closer, her tone softer. You scared her half to death, you know. Noor's been praying nonstop. His gaze drifted toward the child asleep on a chair, doll tucked under her chin. She's brave, just like Amal. The mention of his sister's name hung between them like a fragile memory. She'd be proud of you, Sarah said quietly. The rain returned 3 days later. Not the fierce kind that drowned sound and sight, but a quiet, cleansing drizzle, soaking the dust and cooling the ruins. From the cracked window of the field hospital, R.O.I.'s Khan watched droplets slide down the glass like thin silver lines. His shoulder was bandaged, chest strapped, and his body felt heavier than the armor he once wore. But he was alive. Barely. Sarah entered quietly, carrying a metal tray. Her movements were precise as ever, though fatigue shadowed her eyes. You're awake early again, she said, placing the tray on the bedside table. He gave a small grin. Old habits. Soldiers don't sleep when the rain sounds like artillery. She arched an eyebrow. You're not a soldier anymore. You're a patient who's supposed to rest. Tell that to the war inside my head. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she adjusted his foreline, then folded her arms. You've survived worse. Our eyes. You'll learn to rest again. Maybe even live. He looked at her, the rain reflected in his dark eyes. You talk like that's easy. It isn't, she replied softly. But it's necessary. Silence stretched between them. For years, that silence had been their story. Letters never sent, words never spoken. Now it sat between them again, familiar and heavy. How's Noor? He asked finally. Sarah's face softened. Sleeping in the next ward. She hasn't left your side for 2 days. I had to promise her you'd still be here when she woke up. Our eyes exhaled slowly. She's strong. Amal would have loved her. Sarah hesitated. She talks about Amal sometimes, calls her the lady in her dreams. He froze, eyes narrowing. She said that? Sarah nodded. Last night, she said the lady tells her stories when she's scared. Says the stars are soldiers who never came home. Our eyes turned toward the window, blinking hard. Amal always used to say that. To me, the room grew still, the rain whispering against the roof. Sarah took a slow breath. You never told me what really happened that day. The day Amal died. His jaw tightened. He looked down at his bandaged hands. It was supposed to be a rescue mission. A village caught in the crossfire. She wouldn't stay back. Said she needed to help the children. He paused, the memory flickering painfully. We were evacuating them when the mortar hit. I pulled as many as I could. But when I turned, his voice broke. She was already gone, he whispered. And Noor, she was in her arms. Sarah's eyes widened. So Noor. He nodded faintly. She's Amal's daughter. Her father was a local interpreter who didn't make it out. I promised her, promise Amal, I'd protect the child. I carried her for miles until we reached the border. Sarah sank into the chair beside him, stunned. All this time, you were raising your sister's child? He gave a small, weary smile. Not raising, just keeping her alive. There's a difference. For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of his blanket. You always did carry everyone's battles. Our eyes. You just forgot you were allowed to live too. He looked at her, something raw flickering behind his calm expression. When you lose people like that, you start thinking you're not meant to keep anything good. She shook her head. No, you're meant to keep hope. That's the only thing that ever survives war. Their eyes met. Two people who had once loved and lost each other to duty, now sitting between past and forgiveness. The door creaked. Noor peered, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She wore a hospital blanket draped like a cape. Uncle Our Eyes? He smiled weakly. Hey, princess. She hurried over and climbed onto the chair beside his bed. You're not allowed to sleep so long again. Orders from the princess. Huh? Yes, she said seriously. And Dr. Andy said you're lucky. Sarah smiled faintly. She's right. Noor tilted her head. You're smiling now. You didn't smile before. Our Eyes reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. That's because you gave me a reason to. She grinned. Mama said you would. Sarah and Our Eyes both froze. Mama? Sarah repeated softly. Noor nodded. In my dream last night. She said, tell Our Eyes he did good. She was standing near the river. The sun was behind her. Our Eyes' breath caught. For a moment, his throat tightened too much to speak. Then he whispered, she always loved the river. Sarah swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. Maybe some promises really do cross worlds. Noor reached for Our Eyes' hand. When you're better, can we go there? The river Mama likes. He smiled through the ache. Yes, we'll go together. Sarah watched them quietly. The soldier and the child bound by blood and loss, and something gentler that refused to die. Later, when Noor fell asleep beside his bed again, Our Eyes spoke quietly, his voice low. You could have left me there, Sarah. You didn't have to save me. She looked at him, calm but firm. I wasn't saving a soldier. I was saving the man who once promised me the world, and then walked away to protect someone else's. He exhaled, eyes downcast. I didn't know how to come back. Every time I tried, I saw their faces. Amal's, the ones I couldn't save. You saved Noor, she said gently. You saved the part of Amal that still needed you. Maybe that's how you come back, not by forgetting the dead, but by keeping her love alive in the living. He was silent, her words sinking in deeper than painkillers ever could. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, distant and fading. Sarah stood to leave, but paused at the door. When you're strong enough, Our Eyes, don't go back to the front lines. Go where Noor laughs. Go where life still sounds human. He gave a quiet nod. And you? She smiled faintly. I'll be right there. Someone needs to make sure you don't get shot again. He chuckled softly. I'll try not to make a habit of it. The next morning, the rain cleared. The camp shimmered under weak sunlight. Noah was outside, chasing puddles, her laughter echoing through the broken streets. Our eyes watched her from his wheelchair, the corners of his mouth lifting with something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Sarah joined him, handing him a cup of tea. "You look like a man who's finally home." He took the cup, his voice steady. "Maybe I am." They sat in silence, watching Noor jump across puddles, her doll tucked under her arm. The wind carried her laughter, the sound bright and clean. Our eyes turned to Sarah. "Do you think Amal would forgive me?" She smiled softly. "She already has. You just needed to forgive yourself." He looked toward the horizon where the clouds parted, revealing a faint rainbow stretching over the river. For the first time, the sight didn't remind him of loss. It reminded him of promise. He reached for Sarah's hand, his fingers warm against hers. "You were right," he said quietly. "Hope survives." She squeezed his hand gently. "It always does." And for the first time since the war began, Captain R.I.'s Khan closed his eyes, not from exhaustion, but from peace. The quiet soldier had finally laid down his weapon, not on a battlefield, but in the place where love had waited for him all along.